Well, good morning. We are currently at today. Well, start off. Today is December 2nd, 2017, and we are currently at Burt Mooney Airport in Butte, prepping and it's not really 7:15. It's another computer in the background that I forget to turn off when I'm doing these recordings. But anyhow, uh, where was I? December 2nd, 2017, Burt Mooney Airport, and I am on the runway and getting the gyro ready to go. Um, we are doing our mag checks, and I've already put the flight control in flight from brakes, so the rotor will be ready to pre-rotate here in a minute. Uh, Waiting for the oil temperature to come up to a decent level. Just turned on the GPS and the dash, and we'll get ready to pre-rotate here pretty minute. You'll see when the stick goes forward, there's a button. You have to have the stick in the forward position, rotor forward to start the pre-rotation. And this particular gyro, it's a pneumatic pre-rotator, does spin up pretty fast. So I'll let you know when I do that. Still waiting on the oil temperature a little bit. Oh, don't know what I'm doing. Oh yeah, here I'm checking the control services, rotor controls, rudder, steering, etc. And we'll zoom back in here, and we're just about ready to start pre-rotating. You'll see the stick go forward here any second. Any second now, any minute now. Anyhow, what I'm doing is getting ready to fly from Butte to Melrose in the early morning hours, so I can stop at Jack and Judy's and get a cup of coffee, switch airplanes, and then fly back to Merced from Montana, and hopefully a record-breaking 2 hours. Not in this gyro. There we went. The pre-rotator was forward. It pre-rotated to 200. Anyhow, we're taking off. Anyhow, back to what I'm going to try to add on the end of this video. I have a futuristic gyroplane which has twin jet engines in it and can travel zero point 0.9 Mach, which is 570 some miles an hour. And so, in theory, I should be able to put 3 hours of fuel on that, fly from Melrose. It should have enough oomph to get off the ground. If anything does, a jet engine would, in front of Jack's place there in Melrose, and fly nonstop over the Rockies, straight line of sight, back to Merced, and do it in 2 hours. It's only 700 and some miles as the crow flies. It's about 1,003 miles door to door if you drive it. Anyhow, I'm going to be quiet here. What I'm going to do is I'm following basically the interstate highways, and I'm only flying at 6,250 feet, which is about 800 feet above ground level for this particular area, at about 90 miles an hour. And it took from the time I started this little conversation, so that it makes the flight at 90 miles an hour, you can get to Melrose from Butte in about 20 minutes, roughly, give or take a couple minutes here or there. Anyhow, we're heading out, following the interstate. That's what I use for navigation at night. The green color on the screen is because I'm using night vision, because that's the only way I can see the terrain. If it's a metro area where there's lots of lights, I can, here's what the regular without night vision looks like, and there's not enough lights. Well, there actually is. If I followed the interstates, even though they're not lighted all the way in real life, in this flight simulator they are. So, but I prefer to fly this way. That way I can tell where the mountains are, since I'm flying below the elevation of the peaks surrounding me. So I'm basically going out to Rocker and then heading south, uh, past the turnoff for Divide and Wise River, and then up over the little pass there. And then as soon as I get to Melrose, I'll swing around. One thing that the map does not show that I would be really nice to show, it shows the roads and the railroad track, but it does not show the Big Hole River. Anyhow, uh, you'll see here, I'm getting out now. I'm not quite to Rocker yet, but I'm just about there where I'm going to turn south, and then I'll shut up for a while and let you listen to the drone of the engine. Pretty much trying to maintain 6,250 feet and a cruise speed of 90 miles an hour. Deviates back and forth a little bit. You have to pay pretty close attention to keep it dead on the money, and there is no autopilot in this thing that would lock it in and fly it for you. I know they do have some gyros with autopilots, but they're way up there in the 120,000, 125,000 plus enclosed, blah, blah, blah. So, unless I win the lottery big time someday, I'll never have one of those. Right now, I only own a single place gyro with an open, no cockpit, just an open frame. And, I forgot to tell you the temperature at Butte when I took off is 23 degrees. And I gain a whole 3 degrees when I get to Melrose. It's 26 degrees. But the other thing that it doesn't show is the power lines coming. It shows the big high tension lines in Melrose on the map, but it does not show me the power lines at either end of the little road that runs in front of Jack and Judy's house on the inside. Is where I landed, and I could land there, no problem. Probably could even take off. Here you see we're at Rocker and we're turning south, following the interstate, going down towards heading south here. Anyhow, it's the interstate, but I don't remember the number right off the top of my head. 15, Interstate 15. It's the one that goes to Salt Lake City. Anyhow. I'm going to be quiet here. Anyhow, the temperature was 26 degrees at Melrose when I land. So in case I forget to tell you that's important. And the reason I'm staying at 6250 is because there are broken clouds at 6,500 feet, only about 250 feet above me, and if I got into those, I very likely could get icing conditions, which can really affect the rotor. I flew into a snowstorm over Yosemite a couple weeks ago. A cloud just by accident in the snowstorm immediately iced the entire plane, including the rotors, and took me out of the air because the cloud happened to be a snowstorm. And so anyhow, I avoid clouds, which I would do in real life anyhow, because as a sport pilot, I'm not allowed to fly into clouds. I do not have will not have an IFR rating. So anyhow, I'm going to be quiet for this few minutes here until I get to Melrose, and I'll try and back in and tell you what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. out in the sound is because it checking a map, which cuts out the thing, and it doesn't necessarily sync with where the map shows on the screen. So anyhow, just so you're wondering. Give you a different view here. This is a flyby, different view. Sucker's moving 90 miles an hour. Okay, switch the night vision off here for a second. You can see the freeway, and in a second here you'll be able to see the lights of Melrose. Well, I guess not. Maybe it's the next little split out to the others. But anyhow, the lights of Melrose are just off to the right side of that freeway there. I'm getting close. I'll chime back in here in a few minutes as I do my landing. gently, gently. Yeah, now you can see the lights dead ahead of the plane, just to the right of the freeway. I'm cutting the power back gently, and we're going to start descending into the valley here. We're rounding the peak of that real rocky mountain, and we're descending pretty rapidly now. Actually about 1,000 feet a minute. And here's the little road that runs along the river there. And I'll tell you, right here is dead ahead. You can't see it because the cockpit's mounting it. But here's Ponderosa Lane coming up, and so we're descending down pretty quickly. We're down to 5,200 feet, 5,250 actually. And normally there would be a power line right here, which I'd have to make sure I clear. It's not very high, about 40 feet, but anyhow, let's just assume I cleared it. And this is landing on Ponderosa Lane, right in front of Jack's place. And throw the brakes on, get her slowed down. Yeah, we're down to about 30 now. Yeah, 25, 20, making my turn. We'll taxi back up and park outside the people gate and get a cup of coffee. Like I say, it's 26 degrees right here. So it's going to be pretty chilly. You'll see the pilot when I zoom in here is not dressed in a Nanook of the North suit, but I didn't want to have to just assume he is, because if it was 26 degrees and flying on this thing, you'd be freezing your tutu off or some other part of your anatomy. Okay, idling up here a little bit more. Okay, full stop. I'm going to throw the rotor brake on, kill the rotor. Yeah. And plunk, there's the rotor brake on. Air pressure's coming up. This, again, it's pneumatic. And you can see the rotor spinning down to a full stop. Again, it does spin down in real life pretty fast. I've flown in a MTO, which has the same setup. Okay, we'll zoom back in. And over zoomed a little bit here. I'm going to shut off the master and then the key switch so the mags are cut out and kill the engine. And so I'll shut up here for a second. Okay, engine shut down. I'll zoom in here and then I'll give you a still photo of what this thing looks like, and then time lapse into a daytime version so you can see it better. Okay, here is the zoomed in version, what the plane looks like at about 7:52 a.m. sunrise. And here is the map plot flying from Burt Mooney back and now sitting in front of Jack's place in Melrose. And this was the conditions at Butte when it took off, and this is the conditions at Melrose, 26 degrees at 7:52 a.m.
That's all, folks.